Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this 1010 webinar. A 1010 webinar that is exceptionally taking place on the 20th of the month because we thought it would be nice to give you an overview of the highlights in the implementation of our CEN and CENELEC Strategy 2030 very early in the year. So my name is Els and I will be moderating this webinar in the background. As usual, you will be muted during the presentation. So we ask you to enter your questions in the Q&A panel of the webinar. The speakers will go through the presentation slide by slide, and then afterwards, if we have time left, we will have a look at the questions. Should your question remain unreplied, please note that we always create a Q&A report that we make available on the website. You will be informed about the availability via email as soon as possible. In addition, I would like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so we will also provide you with the recording and the presentation. So please, if we can click through the next slides, Brecht, because I would like to take a few seconds to introduce you to the speakers of today. My colleagues, yes, we're by the way also on Twitter, so should you want to tweet about this webinar, we have the dedicated hashtag 1010webinar, and our handle is the @standards4EU. So please let me take now a moment to introduce you to the speakers of today, because both my colleagues Andrea Golacci and Brecht Lijn are sitting on the edge of the chair to start talking. So please, without further ado, I would like to start with a happy note because we have prepared a small video that is going to present you or introduce you to Strategy 2030 after. Okay, so welcome everybody, and please, Andrea, I hope you're still there after this small intervention. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Els. Good morning from my side as well, at least good morning here in Brussels. As Els introduced us, so we're all working in the CEN and CENELEC Management Center here in Brussels. My name is Andrea Gulaci. I'm responsible for the Governance and Partnership Department, where we have worked intensively on our Strategy 2030. And I'm going to take you a bit through the past, where we're coming from with this strategy, the present, and then of course we will also share with you the way forward and where we're going with that. So this is a bit the flow of the webinar today, and we hope to share with you interesting information on how we got to the CEN and CENELEC Strategy 2030. So the strategic context is, of course, we have been closing our for those of you familiar, and I know we have a lot of our members here online, so I'm very pleased to see that. We had our Ambitions 2020 that have been coming to an end, and that offered the opportunity for CEN and CENELEC to learn a lot, to achieve a lot, and to also identify some gaps that we need to address in the future. So we have done that assessment and thinking about what have we achieved, how can we improve. Of course, our entire context around us, both economically, societal, digital, has evolved tremendously in the last decade. So we saw the opportunity as well to take all this into account and look ahead to 2030. So we are now entering this new cycle of 10 years where we want to ensure that CEN and CENELEC will be future-proof and will be able to deliver the necessary solutions and the necessary standardization tools for the transformative changes that we have ahead. And this is really the moment in time where we have sat down all of last year with our members, with our stakeholders to look through that. And Brecht will explain exactly how that has been happening in practice as well. Now, another lesson learned, if you would like, from our Ambitions 2020 was that the world today is changing so fast, and we have all lived through a very, very challenging year last year, that we need to be a lot more agile and a lot more easy and quick to adapt. So therefore, one of the primary decisions that was taken by our members is that for our strategy 2030, we need to be agile. We need to think in a more modular way. We need to have an incremental approach to reach our long-term ambition goals and allow ourselves to look into short-term projects that need to be realized, medium-term and long-term, to reach, of course, the goals that we have set ourselves for 2020. So therefore, we are also very much considering the more flexible mechanism, regular reviews, evaluation. So this is really something that you will hopefully see translated as well in the way CEN and CENELEC operate and engage with our stakeholders in the next 10 years. The drivers of change that I was mentioning is a long and intensive process of thought that we had. We had a lot of exchanges and interaction with our vast area of stakeholders to make sure that we do take into account everything that is happening around the CEN and CENELEC, around the European standardization system that we are operating in, and take that into account. Of course, we have, and a lot of you are very familiar with the strong political drivers that are happening and that are taking place. And we are in the middle of a very intense European ambition of becoming more digital, becoming more green. So we need to take into account the digital and green transitions. We also operate and want to safeguard the new legislative framework, which defines very clearly how standardization can support the needs of our industry, of our SMEs, of our societal stakeholders, of our researchers. So that is something as well that has been at the core of our thinking around the strategy 2030. We are also, particularly because of last year's shock to the system, if you want, due to the pandemic, we have also taken into account the need for a recovery and resilience of Europe that is at the forefront of a lot of the initiatives that are happening. So therefore, the industrial recovery is also something that has been influencing the way we were looking at the strategy 2030 and setting our goals and objectives, similar with the strategic autonomy. I mentioned technological drivers already, and look, this is one more example where we are a meeting, and I think we have over 200 attendees online. We are all meeting online, so digitalization is an automatic way of life, and it's been something that is now embedded in our way of operating, working, and living. So this is also something that we see as a critical driver for our strategy 2030, and we need to look into producing market responsive standards. We need to look into producing smart standards, standards that are machine readable, that are really embedded into the technology of tomorrow. So this is also another part that we considered deeply into how to reflect in the strategy 2030. Our stakeholders are really the backbone of standardization. So without stakeholders and without their drive and without their input, there wouldn't be a market relevant standard. So the communication and engagement two-way from our side, from CEN and CENELEC, from the members towards our stakeholders, but also from the stakeholders to tell us what their needs are and where they see the role of standards in the future, has also been a very important aspect that we considered in this reflection around the strategy 2030. Another aspect, of course, is the organizational drivers. How are we going to operate in the world of tomorrow? How are we attracting new standardizers, the younger generation, to standardization? How will our business models evolve, and how will we operate as organizations in the future? And this is something that is going to be a longer process of thinking and something that we will see develop accordingly throughout the next years, but definitely an aspect that we do not want to forget or leave behind. And then due to our close relationship and our close alignment between the European and the international level, of course, the global drivers were also at the core of our discussions. As you all know, we have a CEN, an agreement in place with ISO, a CENELEC has an agreement in place with IEC, and this global outreach, this link between the European and the international standardization frame, and how we can together provide standards that that have, a global outreach, that ensure sustainability, that support the SDGs is something that has been at the core of our discussions throughout last year. So these are really a snapshot, if you would like, of the drivers of change that we have considered and that are reflected in the Strategy 2030, which Brecht will take you through in the next slides.
Thank you, Andrea, and also good morning from my side. Indeed, I will take you a bit through the process of how we as an organization, CEN and CENELEC, went about developing our new 10-year strategy, as well as present to you basically the strategy itself, so the vision and mission and the goals. And finally, I'll also give you a bit of a taste of what's next and what we're working on at the moment. So as you can see, we started our strategy development process back in July 2019, about a year and a half ago now, with a two-day CA, so our board's members workshop, moderated by an external moderator to really dive into the challenges we see for European standardization and how we have to transform and change ourselves as organizations to be able to address those challenges. So from that workshop, we were able to formulate a vision statement and a mission statement and identify a rough primary set of goals and priorities, which we then further developed into a first skeleton draft. Members were consulted on based on that draft. That draft was further refined up to a point where our governance bodies deemed it mature enough for a 3-month consultation period. And it's important to note that we consulted our stakeholders not only at the European and the international level, where we as CCMC issued an online survey and interviewed a number of key stakeholders, but also that our members went along with the draft strategy and presented it to their stakeholders at national level. Some of them organized multiple day workshops or had online webinars to present and discuss what was in there, what was missing, how to fine tune and change things. So based on those very valuable inputs that we managed to gather through those consultations, we revised the draft, and by we I mean a group of Sherpas, or a group of champions as we called them, responsible for specific topics under the strategy. We went about revising that draft, organized a second consultation among our members based on that revised draft. And then in September 2020, we organized a validation workshop with the members, where they had a final opportunity to discuss, let's say, the rough version of the final draft. Also, a month later, in October 2020, we did an online, of course, multi-stakeholder dialogue where we discussed the strategy and how it fitted within the, let's say, political economy of Europe at the moment and of EU strategic policy making at the moment. So very interesting discussions there, which we had with the Commission, but also representatives of our Annex 3 key stakeholders, Business Europe, industry associations, and yes, someone from our own membership as well, to discuss the strategy and how it fits into how the EU and Europe as a continent is evolving within global geostrategic dynamics. Of course, the whole recovery issue was a major issue there as well. So with those final inputs considered and accommodated, we were able to present in November a final version of the strategy, which was adopted by our boards and our general assemblies in November, late November 2020. So what's in there? A vision and mission statement, like I said. So the vision statement very much is about an idealistic image of the future, how we see ourselves or what we see ourselves contribute to. And the mission statement is much more about our day-to-day business and how that contributes to our vision. So the vision goes as following: building a safer, more sustainable and competitive Europe through European and international standardization. And the mission statement is about through our stakeholder networks, we create consensus-based standards in order to generate trust, fulfill market requirements, enable market access and innovations for a better, safer, and more sustainable Europe. So that's really what we see as our core business. Then the goals, we've identified 5 goals in total. Each has a number of priorities, 11 in total below them. But the goals as such are about, first, about our relationship with, well, our EU public or European public actors, so the EU and EFTA, to recognize and use the strategic value of the European standardization system. I'll get into more detail about all of these goals and then the next slides, of course. This is just an overview. Second goal is about our customers and stakeholders to benefit from state-of-the-art digital solutions. So how we see digital transformation for CEN and CENELEC taking place over the next 10 years. Increasing the use and awareness of CEN and CENELEC deliverables. This is about stakeholder engagement and customer intimacy in both directions. A fourth goal is about the CEN and CENELEC system being the preferred choice for standardization in Europe. So really modernizing and optimizing our processes and policies in the most comprehensive understanding possible to attract notably next generation of European standardizers and remain the preferred choice for standardization in Europe. And fifth, last but not least, to strengthen our leadership and ambition at the international level. So that is very much about our commitment with the ISO and IEC, respectively. So our first goal, our relationship with the EU and EFTA, concerns 3 priorities. One is about renewing the public-private partnership with the EU to enable a well-functioning single market. This is very much about well, a rejuvenation or a better application of the new legislative framework. People working in standardization will be familiar with the issues and misunderstandings that have created quite a burdensome backlog in citation of harmonized standards. So this goal is really about pushing the reset button and engaging with the European Commission notably, but with all involved stakeholders to come to a common understanding of our roles, needs and responsibilities within that public-private partnership, and to safeguard the private market-driven nature and its added value for Europe. A second priority here is to promote the value, the strategic value of CEN and CENELEC standards in supporting European public policy. Other actors in the world, we argue, are much more savvy in using standardization really as a strategic tool to support public policy and delivering public policy. And we feel there is still ample scope to explore that as of yet untapped potential to use standardization more strategically to exactly release the full innovative, competitive and geostrategic capacity of the EU economy. Here we very much align our link with the EU's long-term strategic goals. So we're talking about the Green Deal and the EU industrial strategy here and how standardization fits into that and can help make the most of those strategic policies. A third one, which is linked to the second priority, of course, is about combating climate change. Like Andrea mentioned, we had a lot of discussions on how standardization can contribute and be a lever for sustainable development at different levels. And here we thought rather than paying lip service throughout the document, where do we or can we make a difference as European standardizers? And that is clearly for us at the European level, and notably in engaging with the Green Deal and the different priorities thereunder. of course, we will also continue to do our work in making well, climate and sustainability friendly standards, and in particular for high impact industries such as construction, transport, and energy. Our second goal is about digital transformation and um, how we see that in the most comprehensive manner for CEN and CENELEC. This is first and possibly foremost about the standards, the type of standards we deliver. Secondly, about how we develop those standards and how we engage with the experts actually negotiating and drafting these standards. And thirdly, it's about the implications for our business models, because of course, digital transformation goes way beyond just technical corrections and changes. It has a whole array of implications in terms of how our business functions. But perhaps on the first issues, producing standards fit for the digital economy, this goes beyond producing standards for new emerging areas like data or cybersecurity. This is really across the whole spectrum of industrial processes and making standards that are fit to be automatically and seamlessly plugged into business and production systems. Um, Also included there is to move away from a document-centric delivery, but to move to more a service-oriented, value-added, providing granular and searchable content, really optimizing the user experience to make well, standardization deliverables as useful and easy to use as possible. Transforming the development process. This is about developing, for instance, a shared digital infrastructure within CEN CENELEC and their respective members, offering an online digital platform where standard developers, experts from all over Europe and the world can gather to develop standards in the most fluid, responsive manner possible. Important to note as well, of course, here is that we do try to align this as closely as possible with similar processes ongoing at the international level at the IEC and ISO. Our business models I discussed, so I'll go to goal 3, which is about our stakeholder and customer engagement. So increasing the use and awareness of CEN and CENELEC deliverables. This is really about us doing a better job at promoting the added value standards and the European standardization system as such can bring to different stakeholder communities, different industries, including SMEs. So really, and this is easier said than done, we realize, but really developing an evidence base on the impact that standards can have across different economic hubs, and based on that develop then tailored engagement strategies to engage with different stakeholder communities and convince them of the value added and the potential of standardization for their specific business interests. A second priority here goes in the other direction and is about us developing the tools and the instruments that we need to listen better to our users and customers, and then really increasing that customer intimacy to optimize our services and ultimately yeah, deliver better products and services. Our fourth goal, as I said, is about modernizing and optimizing our system as a whole in addition to and complementary to the second goal on digital transformation. This is about offering stakeholders a transparent, integrated, easily accessible system working in multidisciplinary ways that are much more agile than the silos what we often work in now. So it's really about a comprehensive well, update of all of the systems that we use and the ways of working that we are used to. Fifth and last is about our engagement at the international level, and this is twofold. And the one way this is about strengthening and being explicit about our commitment to the importance of international standardization. The international first policy principle for us is very important, but also the other way around about better coordinating and optimizing our uh, considerable leverage at from the European members at the international level, and use that as a progressive voice to spur innovation, but also, and that brings me to my second point, to really be a voice, to use standardization as much as possible as a critical catalytic tool for sustainability purposes. So really lever that potential to contribute to the SDGs and its 17 goals. Now on the way forward, as I said, in November, our boards and general assemblies adopted this strategy. Of course, that is just a document, and it now has to be translated into something that can be rolled out over the course of the next 10 years. So what we are focusing on now, and by now I mean between January and June, is the development of an implementation plan for that strategy. A task force with high-level representatives from our members has been set up for that purpose, and we're just getting started on designing an implementation plan framework, but also tapping into all of the knowledge and the institutional experience across our community to make it a simple, intuitive, light on reporting type of implementation plan that, as Andrea mentioned, takes on a very incremental, agile approach, allowing us to change as market and societal needs and circumstances change. In doing all that, it's very important to point out that we don't operate in a vacuum. We are the European standardization organizations, and we work very closely with the ISO and IEC, so there's no use in doing double work. So we plan on using the best of both worlds from ISO and IEC, of course, starting from our own agenda, um, and also tapping into the knowledge and the innovation, promising projects that are happening within our community at member level and national level. Thirdly, within that atmosphere that we operate in, obviously the European Union is an important actor, notably when it comes to completing or achieving and delivering on our goal 1. That's where they are a key focus area. So we are very closely following the ongoing work on an EU standardization strategy and the revision of the EU industrial strategy, and seeing how that can then feed in to our ongoing work in designing this implementation plan.